Hey everyone, welcome to the Autoimmune Dietitian YouTube channel. My name is Annie. I am a registered dietitian and I work mainly with clients struggling with autoimmune diseases. So in my work with my clients, I help them use food and lifestyle as a way to improve their disease and help them get their lives back, because living with an autoimmune disease or a chronic disease can be totally debilitating. So I really like to help people just feel a little bit better. So today we are talking about one of the biggest common food triggers that I see for people in terms of triggers for inflammation, and that is gluten. So gluten is a big trigger for many of my clients, and it can be very inflammatory for those who are sensitive to it. So today I'm going to cover what gluten is, and spoiler alert, it's actually a protein, and why it's bad for some people and how to avoid it. So before I jump in, I just need to attach my usual disclaimer that the information in today's talk is not the substitute for the diagnosis, treatment, or care of disease by a medical provider. This is for informational purposes only. So please consult your qualified health professional for any changes that you make to your medical care. Okay, what is gluten? Like I said, gluten is a protein. It's actually the main protein in wheat. It makes up about 80% of the total protein in wheat. When you mix wheat with water or any other liquid, gluten is formed. Gluten gives wheat that amazing elastic quality to dough, and it helps construct that rigid yet fluffy texture that we get with bread. Gluten is also one of the most commonly used additives in processed foods. So why is it bad for some people? Well, gluten can trigger an immune or an inflammatory response in some people, which can lead to inflammation and intestinal damage. So gluten contains gliadin, which is a glycoprotein, and it's very difficult for humans to digest it. So it makes its way through our intestinal lining as a large undigested particle. And normally with people who are not sensitive to it, they have special cells that pick it up and kind of take care of the gliadin molecules to make sure that they're not harmful for our bodies. But for people who have celiac disease, immune cells see this gliadin as an invader, and it triggers an immune response. So your intestine is this amazing organ. Your small intestine, which is sandwiched between your stomach and your large intestine, has these finger-like projections on the lining called villi. And villi helps to increase the surface area of your intestine so you can absorb all of those amazing nutrients that we get from food. In the case of celiac disease, the immune response wipes out the villi of the small intestine. And because the villi is the main structure that helps absorb nutrients, when those go missing, your body's at risk for malnutrition. So what if you don't have celiac disease? There is definitely something called non-celiac gluten sensitivity or non-celiac wheat sensitivity. And this is because gliadin does something else in our body, and it has to do with something called zonulin. So gliadin releases something called zonulin from the intestinal lining as it's being absorbed. Zonulin is an inflammatory protein, and it triggers those tight junctions between your intestinal cells to relax. And so when that happens, it makes your intestinal lining more permeable, or what we call leaky gut. When your intestinal lining becomes permeable, other large substances can sneak through and cause an inflammatory reaction. Other potential issues with gluten ingestion include it can trigger dysbiosis in the gut microbiome, leading to more inflammation. It can dampen your antioxidant defense mechanism of the intestinal lining. It can affect your mental function and may increase behavioral issues. And it also may be a trigger for autoimmune diseases. So it does do a lot of other things besides just, trigger the intestinal lining to become more leaky. So what's the best way to avoid gluten? So I usually give people a few different ways, and there's plenty more online. You can definitely look that up. But here's what I usually tell people to do. First and foremost, buy gluten-free certified products. There is a little label on products. If they're certified gluten-free, they've been tested, and they are safe for people with celiac or any other sensitivity to gluten or wheat. So you want to look on the package for that label. Even if it's something that generally doesn't have gluten, I would still err on the side of caution and make sure that you do buy stuff that is certified gluten-free. There's always a chance for cross-contamination. Second one, which is definitely a more challenging one, especially if you live in a household where gluten is eaten. You want to try to use separate cooking utensils, pans, appliances, and so forth to avoid cross-contamination. So the top two places that people get exposures from anything really, even like common allergies, is the cutting board or the toaster oven. So cross-contamination on cutting boards is so common. And the one way you avoid that is by using a clean cutting board and knife every time. So for me, usually my husband in the morning gets there first and he like makes some sort of something with bread on it. I flip it over, get a new knife, and then, make my own thing or whatever I need to cut. So you really want to make sure it's clean. Also try to use separate cooking utensils and appliances. Crumbs get everywhere, and flour can like spread around in ovens when you cook. So the safest thing to do if you can is to use like one oven or one toaster for all the gluten-free stuff, and then use the other oven, if you have two ovens, for regular gluten stuff. Or like what we do is we use one side of the toaster for gluten-free items and one side of the toaster for gluten items. And then, clean it out pretty regularly. The last one is, I have two more. All right, the first one, second to last one, know where gluten is hidden. So gluten can lurk and hide in many, many places. The Celiac Disease Foundation has a really nice list of ingredients on their website that contain gluten. And if it's helpful, I would either take a snapshot of that list or create your own list and keep it on your phone so you can look up ingredients when you're at the grocery store or eating out. But again, you really want to just stick to the gluten-free certified products. And then my last piece of advice is be that person at the restaurant, okay? I know it's really hard to speak up for yourself when you're ordering and be that annoying person like, I have this, I can't have had this, I need to avoid this, but believe me, your health is worth it. So you have to be that person at the restaurant and inform the waitstaff of your allergy or sensitivity. Better yet, call the restaurant ahead of time and see if they can accommodate you. People are very forthcoming about that information. If they can accommodate you, they will tell you, and then you can not eat there. But that is honestly the safest way to go, is always call ahead, or, again, just make sure that you stand up for yourself when you're at the restaurant ordering. Okay, last piece of advice. Before you remove gluten from your diet or do any sort of trial, please get tested for celiac disease if you have not been tested already. It is so important to have that information so you can do an accurate test before you remove gluten. Because believe me, once you remove gluten and you feel a lot better, especially if it's a trigger for you, you're not going to want to go back on gluten to get tested for celiac disease. So it's much better to know before you remove it so you can have that information. So please reach out to your doctor to get tested. It's a very simple blood test to kind of start. So just to recap today, we focused on what gluten is. It is it can be an inflammatory protein. It releases gliadin and zonulin, which can just cause a whole host of issues in your intestinal lining and your intestines in general if you are sensitive to it. We talked about how to avoid gluten, and then make sure you get tested before you remove it. So if you would like more help, following a gluten-free diet or reducing inflammation or figuring out what your food triggers are, I would love to help you. I offer free 15-minute discovery calls to make sure that we are a good fit for each other. So you can go to my website, AnnieRubin.com, or it should be linked in my in the video notes. So go there and register and sign up for a free call. I also have lots of great information on my website. There's lots of freebies there you can download for free, different guides and so forth. So check those out while you're there. I have a pretty extensive blog. And then lastly, if you really like the video, please hit the little subscribe button. These come out about every week, and I hope you can join me for more of these chats to learn about nutrition and how it can affect your autoimmune disease. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time.